Welcome, everyone. Still excited for this last session in the TED room? Nice, nice. My biggest fans are right over there. Okay, welcome, everyone, to the last session here in the TED room. Before we go to this last session, I have some house announcements that I'd like to share with you. So first of all, I'm going to ask you to turn off the sound on your phone and any mobile devices that you may carry. Secondly, this session is recorded, so the camera is right there in the middle. So if you really have to leave during the presentation, please do so via the doors on the left or the right. And if you have questions, please raise your hand so I can get to you with the microphone, so your question will be picked up for the recording. Then thirdly, there are CEUs available for the session, and you'll get the code and the instructions and the full thing at the end of the session. So stay tuned for that. It's included. And then lastly, we gratefully acknowledge the Xterra Group for their generous sponsorships and their valued support to the conference education program. Okay, with that being said, we're ready for the last session, aren't we? Okay, the last session is by Bo Mitchell. He is a former police commissioner of Wilton, Connecticut, and he's now president of 911 Consulting, and he's helping organizations across the country and around the world to prepare for emergencies and disasters. Today, Bo will challenge us to rethink how we identify and prepare for workplace threats. So, without further ado, please welcome Bo Mitchell.
Good morning. Ladies and gentlemen, that was pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. We're going to talk about emergencies in your workplaces where people can get hurt, your coworkers can get killed. So we have to be on our toes. Let's try this again. Good morning. Outstanding. So we're going to talk about ranking lethal risk. Which killer emergencies should you rank in your emergency action plan? And what should you be training along the way? Of course, we're going to have disturbing and ugly images and scenarios. I do you no favors by dumbing this down, so there's no apology here whatsoever. I do you no favors by being warm and fuzzy, because emergencies are not warm and fuzzy. And there's always going to be somebody who says, just one more presenter who's trying to use scare tactics on me. And anybody who says that, I'll give you the t-shirt. I'm in complete denial about my people's safety at my place of work, and ask you or tell you you have to wear this every day of the year in front of all your employees. We'll talk about lots of law as we go along, and I'll give you a way of seeing all of that by way of citations at the end. You don't have to write anything down. Hold your questions to the end, because we're going to talk about ranking lethal risk. Which killer emergency should you be putting into your plans and training? We all like stories, so let's start off with a scenario and put you in the moment. This is Jennifer. Jennifer works for you. Jennifer's worked for you for 10 years. Jennifer is the perfect employee. Comes in early, goes home late, does all her projects on time, and over the last 10 years has great annual reviews. Everybody at your organization loves Jennifer. She's the perfect employee. Part of being the perfect employee is that she brings no family drama to work. We know nothing about her family situation. Perfect employee, no family drama around the water cooler. Along the way, over 10 years, we've learned that she has 2 children, and she's married to Joe. Now, we've seen Joe at a couple of social events. Turns out Joe is a monster. Joe beats Jennifer. Joe abuses the children in front of Jennifer. Joe's a monster. So bad as this becomes, she's going through an ugly custody battle in her divorce, and she's gone to court and got a restraining order against Joe at the 2 schools where the kids go, at the house where she still lives, and of course her place of work, your place of work. But you know nothing about that, because she's the perfect employee. No family drama at work. Today, Joe shows up at your front door, at your reception. Everybody goes, oh, isn't that adorable? Joe always brought flowers to his wife, so of course we give him instant access. He walks down the hall, finds Jennifer at her workplace, drops the flowers, pulls out a pistol, and shoots her in the head. What do you do right now? What's your response? You're in a meeting like this, you're on the phone with a client, you're walking down the hall, you're in the bathroom, and you hear the report of the pistol. What do you do right now? This is intimate partner violence, a locution developed by the Department of Justice in Washington, D.C. years ago. Why? Because it is so common. And they did the research. They say about every year, about 2,500 people get killed because of intimate partner violence in workplaces in the United States of America, most of them women, in just this scenario. In fact, they say, this is the scenario, because I know where she's going to be. If I'm estranged to her, I know where she's going to be like clockwork, because she's the perfect employee. Most female murders know they're the person who accosted them, the man that comes after them. Every 20 minutes, there's somebody injured, not killed, in intimate partner violence. CDC says the spousal abuse is epidemic. So what do you do right now? We see a lot of reporting on active shooters. You've seen that around here, but it's all over the country. Minnesota's not special in that regard. But the reporting is about blood and guts. It's a mile wide and an inch deep. So what are we missing here? Well, the FBI and the NYPD have done the research on active shooters, and they tell us that all of them are over in 8 minutes. 99% of them are over in 8 minutes, and most of them, to the 85th percentile, are over in 4 minutes. So active shooters are over in 4 minutes. What does that mean? It means police can't deploy in time to help you. Yet you're going to call on them to have them come help you. This is the 4-minute rule. Everything bad happens in the first 4 minutes of any emergency, including a fire. Pick your emergency. Medical, that's where a whole 4-minute thing came from originally. After 4 minutes, if you can't take care of somebody, their ability to survive goes down the hill. But it's true for bomb threats. It's true for everything. You've got 4 minutes to get this right and start to respond to it. So why is the 4 minutes so important? Well, let's look at response times for various police departments. Right here in Minneapolis, Minnesota, 15 minutes, says the department. 9+ minutes for Milwaukee, 6 to 12 minutes in Chicago. My experience working from New York to Los Angeles, from Chicago to New Orleans, it's 6 to 20 minutes before the police can show up. And it's always a police officer shows up, doesn't matter what your emergency is. So the 4-minute rule is a law that covers every kind of emergency. So if it's all going to be very, very dangerous in the first 4 minutes, and that's where all the bad stuff's going to happen, including an active shooter or a medical event or whatever, it means that police and fire are not the first responders. They are the official responders. If they aren't the first responders, guess who the first responders are? You are the first responders, whether you like it or not. You cannot change the physics. This is the reality. This is not TV. And yo-yo means you're on your own. You got to figure this out. So what do you do right now? With Jennifer down? Run? Hide? Fight? Well, if we haven't written it all down very, very carefully, in detail, site by site, for every one of the employees at that site, and then trained it carefully, this is going to be their response. To active shooters, to any emergency, because you have not trained them in detail as to what they're going to do. So ranking lethal risk, which killer emergencies should we be putting into our emergency response plan and our training thereof? Well, Bo, really, this is simple. We just dial 911. That's it, right? Let me remind you something my drill sergeant taught me on the first day of basic training in the United States Army. For every complex problem, there's a simple solution that's always wrong. Fair warning, I will be candid. Help me, Sophia. I'm Bo Mitchell. I am what he's saying there, of course, is you can't handle the truth. So our test today is, can you handle the truth about what it is that you have to do as far as planning and training for your emergencies are concerned? I am Bo Mitchell. I'm president of 911 Consulting. I was police commissioner of Wilton, Connecticut for 16 years. I retired to start 911 Consulting to work with folks like you regarding the safety of people like your co-workers in facilities just like yours. All those initials after my name indicate that I'm trained and board certified 23 different times, emergency management, disaster recovery, business continuity, active shooters, chemical spills, bad weather, and a bunch of other stuff that we can talk about today. Our clients tend to be large headquarters companies who work for their headquarters and for their facilities in the field, including working at 29 K through 12s, 21 summer camps, and 5 colleges and universities. By the way, the federal government at the Department of Homeland Security rates business models and kinds of facilities. Schools and camps and colleges and universities are at the bottom of the list. The bottom of the list as far as their preparation and training for emergencies. Think about that as you're sending the little darlings off tomorrow morning to school. I've been an expert consultant in landmark legal cases with expected settlements in the billions of dollars, Failure to plan and failure to train are the negligence issues at court. They want to see your plan. They want to see the quality of your plan, the quality of your training. I also served in the United States Army. Last year, my company and I were both awarded Safety People of the Year by the World Safety Organization. I've been a speaker at all the places you would expect me: FEMA, NFPA, SHRM, BOMA, building owners people, risk management people. And as far as IFMA is concerned, IFMA is a client of mine as far as the headquarters in Houston is concerned, in a high-rise. And I've worked in just about every one of the chapters across the country. I mentioned before I'm an expert witness at court: California, Illinois, Florida, Texas, and Connecticut. And this is very important because, you know, if OSHA, the fire marshal, comes in and gigs you on something, that's one thing. There's paperwork and maybe a small fine, but, you know, you just keep on moving and put that aside. If you get sued, it could cost you the company because the size of the settlements that you're going to have to go through, or the jury-directed settlements, are breathtaking. We've served 239 employers in thousands of workplaces nationwide since 2001, and our corporate mission statement is making America safer one workplace at a time. Trust me, it's not easy. Part of the reason is that people don't know how to rank risks and what to put in their emergency action plans and what to train. So certainly we want to have this in there now, don't we? Should it be in there? Yes, it should be, absolutely. Well, why? Well, I ask this question over and over and over again. I've looked at almost 1,200 emergency action plans over the last 24 years. That's about one a week. In every kind of workplace, workplaces just like yours. I've been there, I've seen that as far as where you're concerned, what's happening in your organization as far as emergency plans and selecting the risk, ranking the risk. And I see a lot of plans, and there's something being done everywhere to some degree. Maybe this is what your plan looks like. I probably overshot the mark. You probably don't have this many emergencies in it. And how did you pick them? Well, you picked them because of lethality. That's always important. They're scary and topical. Management wanted it in there. Employees wanted it in there. It's expensive, so you want to be able to say that you planned for that and trained for that. Scary and complicated is a reason that things don't get put into emergency plans. I can't train it. It's too complicated, this active shooter stuff or a chemical spill. But I do have to worry about legal compliance, so I want to put that in there. And then sometimes I hear, well, that's what everybody else is doing, so that's why I put it in my plan, and that's what my plan looks like. So why do we do this? Well, when you get into your deposition, and that's where I want to take you, because if somebody's injured or killed, you will be sued and you will be deposed. And they're asked, why did you put those in there and not the one that got somebody hurt or killed on your premises? And you'll be deemed arbitrary and capricious. You didn't really think it through. You didn't do any ranking. You didn't do anything at one particular point in time to say, this is why we should have that in our emergency action plan. So let's start at the beginning. Why do we have emergency action plans? Something called duty of care. Duty of care says that you're supposed to take care of everybody from a safety standpoint who is on your premises. Pure and simple. Now, somebody's going to say, Bo, that duty of care thing, some foggy notion you consultants think of just to scare us. No, each employer shall furnish a place of employment free from recognized hazards that are causing or likely to cause death or serious physical harm to employees. Now, I want you to read that carefully. That's your duty of care. Please understand, this is not a best practice, this is not a code, this is not a guideline, this is not a regulation, and this is not a Hallmark card that you got when you took your job in the facilities world. This is law written by the United States Congress, both the House and the Senate, and passed almost unanimously in the House and the Senate when that was an okay thing to do, and signed into law by the President of the United States. All of this happened before any of you was born, but it's out there. It's unambiguous, absolute, and very, very powerful, and will be used against you at court. So, do you have an emergency action plan? Well, this question gets asked of senior managements all over the country on a yearly basis. And over the last decade, the answers have come back 30 to 80% say, of course we have an emergency plan. Clearly, they don't know what it is, because what's that range there of 30 to 80%? Well, it turns out people really don't understand what an emergency action plan is and how they should rank risk as far as planning and training is concerned. You can also see right away that over the last 10 years, these things have been done. 20% of employers are willing, at least 20% are willing to admit, nah, we don't have an emergency action plan. Well, what's the scope of all that? Well, there are 8 million employers in the United States of America, and this morning 163 million Americans went to work full and part-time. That's a lot of people who don't have an emergency action plan, or people who they work for who just simply don't understand what that is. There's lots of research to back up my assertion that nobody is doing this right. This is a recent one, and you can see all of those percentages over there. This is asked of CEOs, the responsible party, the people who should be in the know about safety as far as their workplaces are concerned. I think the numbers are a lot higher as far as their negligence is concerned, but they're willing to admit it to surveyors as far as that's concerned. Now, when I go in and ask for an emergency action plan and ask them to rank risk and tell me what they're planning for as far as emergencies are concerned, I get a disaster recovery or business continuity plan, which are great plans and very, very important, but they're not emergency action plans. It's all about data. We are willing to spend millions of dollars on data as far as the safety and security of that data is concerned. How much money are we spending on people to keep them safe and secure? It's not called an emergency action plan, not all hazards, not trained annually, not for all employees, and it's not OSHA compliant. So there they are, almost 1,200 of them that I've reviewed over the last 24 years. How many of those do you think were OSHA compliant? One. None of the Fortune 5 or Fortune 50 or Fortune 500 companies I have worked for had an OSHA compliant emergency action plan. Basic blocking and tackling. So tell me what's required by law. Let's start there as far as ranking risk is concerned. Who are the authorities, who is covered, and who is the responsible party? Well, OSHA is not a town in Wisconsin. OSHA is the Occupational Safety and Health Agency in Washington, D.C., which has been writing, as you've seen since 1970, regulations regarding employee safety in workplaces like yours. And there are the citations that say you shall have an emergency action plan. Which brings us to the discussion of standards. Standards are very important. They can be laws, regulations, guidelines, best practices. Only courts, meaning the judge, can set and adopt the standards that juries will use against you at court. I've told you I've been to court for defending folks like you who've been sued by somebody who's been injured or killed inside of workplaces. And it turns out, I didn't know this until I got into this about 20 years ago, that there's plenty of research on what jurors think going into a case, deliberating the case and coming out of the case. And it turns out the profile is that employees, all juries are made up of employees or retired employees. They've all worked for somebody. And using their language in the research, they think that all employers, when they talk about negligence as far as emergencies are concerned, have created at their workplaces a sanctuary of safety. This is their language, not mine. But that's what they think going into it. They think you've done everything in your power to make sure that everybody is safe and secure, that you've ranked the risks and you've trained accordingly. And we have to understand that OSHA and your state fire code, I don't care what state you're from, all say that you have to do this and you have to do it well. One of those and they have plenty of standards in this regard. And it gets very complicated very quickly. Remember, for every complex problem, there's a simple solution that's always wrong. None of this is simple. Along the way is the National Fire Protection Association, which has been around since 1896, and in the last 125 years has been writing standards for all of the fire codes in the United States of America, are chock-a-block full of NFPA standards, one of which is very important to this discussion, which is 1660, the Standard for Emergency Continuity and Crisis Management, Preparedness, Response, and Recovery, the 2024 edition. Why is that important to you? Because it's all about you, about emergency response and your duty of care to get this right, to rank risk, plan, and train. It's 189 pages long. I invite you to all download it off the internet, curl up in front of the fire tonight, and read it all. It's all about you, not about me. It's about the standard to which you're supposed to write your emergency action plan and your fire prevention plan and training thereof. And on chapter 5, it will tell you what's supposed to be. They have ranked the risk, and they've put in there that you shall have all of these things in it. Let me put them in alphabetical order for you. There they are. 51 different emergencies that they have put into their standard. P.S. This standard will be the one used you in court. You don't get to pick and choose the standards, the judge does. All courts love the NFPA and have for a century and use it in all of their decisions. And they're going to use this and have you compared to them as far as the standard is concerned. Remember, each employer shall furnish a place of employment free from recognized hazards. They are all recognized in the standard that will be held against you when you go to court. So when we talk about ranking risk, which threats should you rank in your emergency action plan and your employee ranking, you don't have to rank anything. It's all been laid out for you in the textbook, so to speak, of NFPA 1660. So forget about ranking risk. You're required to plan for any and all of these risks that are listed in the standard. So OSHA says you shall create and train plans, and NFPA 1660 says you shall do so on an all hazards basis. So now let's go back to perhaps what is your plan and put it up against the standard, and they all look like pretty thin up there. Let's take a look at some of these things, because you can tell me, well, I don't care about earthquakes, I don't care about wildfires, I don't care about half the stuff that's up there. And especially the boss doesn't care as far as putting my time and energy and his money into this discussion. Well, nobody cares what your boss thinks. The judge and the jury think a lot about the NFPA standard, which is in front of you right now. So let's take a look at some of these things. CCC stands for Command, Control, and Communications. Amateurs talk emergencies. Professionals talk command, control, and communications. If we can't assert our command, control, and communications of our people when the emergency begins, we're going to have chaos and someone's going to get hurt or worse. If we can employ our command, control, and communications, then we're on our way to a successful conclusion. Command, control, and communications. And we've all seen how this goes wrong. In Texas at Uvalde, everybody fell apart as far as command, control, and communications. The very people we would hope have done all the training and all of the planning as far as their command, control, and communications to hurt us. And people got killed. Look at the attempted assassination on President Trump in Pennsylvania. Again, a complete failure of command, control, and communications. This is what that looks like when it doesn't go right. And we have to worry about all the 4-minute rule and our command, control, and communications being imposed immediately because we're on our own. Police can't deploy in time. They are not the first responders. We are the first responders. And we're supposed to organize our people into an emergency response team. So says every one of your fire codes and OSHA regulations at the federal level. Command, control, and communication. So who is in command of your workplace when you go into an emergency that takes care of all these people using an emergency response team? Your control mechanism is that team. And I say keep it simple. Commanders, crisis captains, and searchers. Searchers search. They're supervised by captains, and everybody reports to a commander. Keep it real simple. But you got to have a team. So says the law. And that team has to be in play all the way through to the end, which could take many hours or a day, but certainly in the first 6 to 20 minutes when nobody's there to help you from a police, fire, or ambulance. So that's the response that you have to worry about. So who is in command? And you have to have a chain of command, because if that person isn't there, you're here. Who's in command of your place right now if there's an emergency? We left Fred in command. You left Fred in command? Really? Here you are, somebody who knows what to do, and you left Fred in command who has no idea what to do. Well, you got to change that. That's your obligation under your duty of care, to report to the initial response of the police officer and then the incident commander, who might be from fire, police, or ambulance, depending upon the kind of emergency you're having. Command, control, and communications. If you can't communicate, you can't respond.
What we've got here is failure to communicate.
And failures to communicate happen all the time in emergencies. Look at 9/11 in New York City with the Twin Towers. The New York City police commanders couldn't talk to their officers, the fire commanders couldn't talk to their officers, and the two agencies couldn't talk to each other. 400 of their employees died that day. So if the very best of us could screw this up, could you screw it up? Could we screw it up as far as our command, control, and communications are concerned? Well, that's the way you have to plan it. There are going to be failures to communicate. And also understand, going back to the NFPA, the Life Safety Code says that you shall you shall alert everybody in your premises, everybody, including contractors, et cetera, at the beginning of the emergency. So says the Life Safety Code, which is law in every one of your 50 states. And at OSHA regulations, you shall alert all occupants at the start of any emergency, and we know that it's a 4-minute world. And we're in the 100% business. Now, the 100% business is tough. Listen, I have children, and when they came home and had 98% on their report card, I thought I'd met my mission as a parent. 98% in our business of emergency response is an F. 2% of your people have gone missing? Well, that's a problem. And we have the 4-minute rule. So how do you command, control, and communication, especially the communication alert part, across all of those kinds of emergencies there? We have 51 of them that I flashed up on the screen. Well, you are already doing that right now as far as fires are concerned. You put boxes on the wall. Anybody, including my 10-year-old grandson, could cease fire or smoke and go up and pull that. And supposedly, we have instant command, control, and communications because we've drilled this. Instantly. Do we have a box on the wall for an active shooter? A box on the wall for a bomb? For an explosion? For a suspicious person? Probably not. So how are we going to do this? Well, we've got to put all of these things into play. A lot of information platforms that we have to use. The one that's most important is your two-way radios, because everything else has shortcomings to it. But what about a public address system, an email system, emergency notification system? Computers take over everybody's computer screens, because everybody's sitting there in front of a screen with their headphones on and no one's paying attention. Still your obligation to get a hold of them and tell them what's going on. Now, I recommend to clients that we put all of these in play. And many of them come back and say, Bo, it's time to switch to decaf. All of that, isn't that duplicative? And my answer is, when we're talking about life safety, your coworkers and their lives, redundancy is a beautiful thing. Redundancy is a beautiful thing. Redundancy is a beautiful thing. You gotta be redundant. Let's move on to wildfires. Oh, Bo, we don't have wildfires. That's a California problem. Really?
But that dry weather mixed with the high winds has proven to be an absolutely killer combo. The unfortunate thing as well, the weather today is much of the same. Got red flag warnings over nearly all of northern Minnesota.
Pick out Minnesota, 1,000 wildfires every year on average, says the Forestry Service. North Dakota, again, 1,000 on average every year over the last 7 years. Go to Florida, over 2,000 wildfires in Florida, which of course is a swamp, but nevertheless they have wildfires. What about Massachusetts? Pick out a state, they're all having wildfires, and it's all very apparent to everybody. And it isn't fire that kills, it's smoke. So what happens if that smoke is coming towards your workplace? Have you ranked that risk? Do you have a plan for it? You better, because it's going to happen. What about training? Training under OSHA regulation is mandatory. You shall train all personnel. You shall train them in a classroom. You shall do so annually. You shall do it higher, and you shall use a qualified trainer. Now, maybe you're that qualified trainer, maybe for a fire. Are you that for the active shooter, for the wildfire, for all the other things that are up on the wall? You have to think that through, because you have to rank your risk as far as training is concerned as well. So that's the obligation you have as far as training is concerned. And if you haven't done this in the last 364 days, then you certainly haven't complied with the law. More importantly, you haven't told your people what to do when the peat moss hits the fan, and they're going to look like the deer in the headlights. On-screen training can never supplement, can never substitute for the on-screen training. Now, OSHA has had an opinion on this. People write in almost every quarter and say, gee, this is wrong, it's old-fashioned, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to do the classroom. And OSHA keeps coming back and saying, you're wrong, and this is what we say as far as our opinions are concerned. In fact, this comes from the textbook for compliance officers. Exclusive use of screen-based training for emergency response is not acceptable. Screen-based training in all of its forms can never be the sole vehicle for training for emergencies. It can be used only as a supplement to the, and look at the red letters here, direct verbal interplay between experienced, highly knowledgeable trainers and the trainees. Are you that trainer, and have you put everybody in the classroom to make sure that they know what to do? Now, when I was in the United States Army, we had a room about this big for planning operations. We had all the TVs on the front, just like in Hollywood. But we also had a saying that we thought was the most important to remind us every day. We don't rise to the occasion spontaneously knowing how to respond to emergency. We sink to our level of training. And untrained, we just sink. I give my clients a promise. You give me your employees 3 hours annually in a 2,000-hour year. You give me your employees 3 hours annually, and I'll give you back employees who are confident they know how to respond to every kind of emergency that is in our, as we have ranked our risk, in compliance with these standards. Now, how can I make that promise and make it happen? Well, number one, we start in the right place. When asked in surveys, American employees like yours in all kinds of workplaces over the United States of America every year, 85% continually come back and say, safety is their most important issue at work, beating out all the things I thought would be number one: wages, leave, sick days, overtime, unions. Scattered number two, safety is the thing on their minds. The second way I deliver my promise is I've been trained at the master level to do that. And you need to find somebody, maybe that's you, who can do that. As far as my promise is concerned, I can deliver on it, because when I give a training session for 3 hours, I at the end give a survey out to every one of the employees in the room, asking them if they are now confident they know how to respond to any kind of emergency. As we flash it up there, all 51 of them. 98.5% of those people, the 50,000 people, came back and said, yes, I am confident now, or very confident, I know how to respond to any kind of emergency in my workplace. Now, I know, ladies and gentlemen, this level of success is not because of my boyish charm. It's because we made it all about them, took the scary out of the discussion about their most important issue, safety, made everybody comfortable, empowered all to know what to do when the shit hits the fan. By the way, that's a technical term, only I can use it in this room. Can we train active shooter without traumatizing everybody? Because that's an issue, we agree, and do so effectively. Yes, we can do that. We put everybody in the moment. I train at run, hide, fight. I think that's the best way to do it. But it isn't run, hide, fight, it's alert, run, hide, fight. Got to tell everybody that the 4 minutes has begun. If we haven't alerted them, then they aren't going to know what to do. And we needed to tell them where the guy is, because that will tell me whether I'm running, hiding, or fighting, depending upon my position in to him as the active shooter. So this is how I train. We put everybody in the moment. We tell them what one looks like. We have lots of video, unfortunately, about active shooters in campuses, workplaces all over the United States of America. He is walking slowly. 98% of active shooters are male. 99% of them are alone. So we train them and show them exactly what run means. And you pull others with you because of the failures to communicate. They didn't get the word. If somebody freezes, we leave them behind. Why? Because 2 dead adults is not better than 1 dead adult. Keep moving. What does a lockdown look like? Well, there's no escape. You see what he's doing. He's popping it off. If you're a special needs person, you can't run. So you got to hide. And we tell people what hiding looks like, what you're supposed to be doing as far as your phones are concerned and the rest of it. And then there's fight. He's going up and down the hall jiggling handles. If he can't get in, he moves on to the next door. If he finds a handle that he can get in, this is what that looks like. And we train people, we put them into the moment as to what this looks like and what they're supposed to do when this guy comes through the door. You attack. You attack together. You yell, shout, and scream. We show them. We don't tell them. We put them in the moment. Because when it happens, you want to be able to say, I've seen this before, I know what to do. But then, that's the first 4 minutes run, hide, fight. We have something, we've called the police, and now we have to worry about the next 4 minutes, or the next 20 minutes, or the next 2 hours. Something called the active shooter protocol is in every one of your jurisdictions all over the United States of America. You have dialed 911. What does that mean? These guys show up, most of them males in their 20s and 30s, high on testosterone and adrenaline, carrying automatic weapons with the safety off. Hey, what could go wrong? And what is the active shooter protocol? It's about 12 pages long in most jurisdictions, from New York to Los Angeles. I'm going to give it to you in 3 slides. Go into your building, find the guy with the gun, kill him. That's your active shooter protocol, exactly what we want them to do, and that's why we called them. So there they are, they've showed up. Shouldn't we meet and brief them? We know more about it initially than they do. So shouldn't we show them what's going on? We have information. This is a military operation. We need to brief them. Hands up, hands empty. We have to train our employees that this is how they're supposed to respond. In your schools, your children are considered suspects. Everybody's considered a suspect. Hands up, hands empty. This is Chicago during an active shooter. This is Oregon, California, Missouri. Put your hands up right now, everybody in the room. Take a look around. This wasn't in the brochure when you advertised for your job, was it? You got to train people. What's wrong with this picture? This is an active shooter. All these are real images. What's wrong with this picture? This woman here is carrying her bag. She's going to run into a police officer in about 10 feet in full uniform with an M16 pointed at her chest. Drop that bag. You can't tell. Oh, yes, we can. And you will drop it, and we will search it without your presence and your permission. This person here thinks it's in the Constitution of the United States that she gets to carry her phone. No, it isn't in the Constitution of the United States. And to a guy who's high on testosterone and adrenaline, that looks like a pistol. Now, you can say that's the silliest thing you ever heard. No one cares what you think. We care a lot about the guy carrying the M16, safety off, pointed at your chest. It's already happened in New York City and other jurisdictions around the country. Somebody refused, after many, many commands, to drop their phone. 3 shots in the chest. That's how they're all trained. Dead before you hit the... guess whose fault that is and whose responsibility that is, because you didn't train them. The employer, not the employee, not the police. This guy thinks he's on a break. No, we're not having fun today. Everybody loves case histories. Everybody loves a story. Let me give you one, a case history of an active shooter at a school. This is one of my clients. This is New York City in a high-rise with 300 adults and children going through a fire drill as required by law, city, state, and federal law, once a month. And this video shows you looking down 61st Street towards 11th Avenue. 150 people going this way, if we could turn the camera around, another 150 going up towards Lincoln Center for their assembly area. This is a fire drill. This is a drill. The green circle is our hero, our emergency commander, perhaps somebody like you. He is their facilities director, as a matter of fact. He has a team of people that are walking around in their yellow vests, and he initiated this drill. 300 people in play now on the street. There's the shooter. He was camouflaging himself amongst the kids and the adults. He was arrested. He's in prison now. Our emergency team is still working this thing, even though he's gone by. They didn't know that. Look at the number in the lower right-hand corner. All this happened in 50 seconds. 50 seconds, less than a minute. That's typical. That's the way this works. So what are the lessons learned? The 4-minute rule applies. Yo-yo, you're on your own. No huddle, no hesitation. Instant command, control, and communications. No panic, no freezing. That's how it works. That's how you rank risk. That's how you plan and train. So, do you have an emergency action plan that complies with all of the standards that are going to be used against you? Ladies and gentlemen, I can guarantee 3 things in life: death, taxes, and you don't have an emergency action plan that complies with the law. Oh, I'm a tenant, so that takes care of everything because the tenant must be taking care of that. Well, the landlord has no obligation in your requirements anywhere in the United States of America regarding emergency planning and training in federal, state, or local law, period. So I can guarantee 4 things in life: death, taxes. You don't have an emergency action plan. Your landlord doesn't have an emergency action plan for himself or for you. Oh, but Bo, we're part of a parent company. They tell us every day they're the smartest people in the world. We aren't so smart. They're going to take care of us. Ladies and gentlemen, I can guarantee 5 things in life: death, taxes. You don't have an emergency action plan. Your landlord doesn't have an emergency action plan that complies with the law, and your parent does not have one either. In fact, your parent and your landlord wouldn't know a lockdown from a touchdown, wouldn't know the NFPA from the NFL, and wouldn't know duty of care from Medicare. Does everybody know what that is? Yeah. Okay. For you Dutch people, you'll catch up, I'm sure. So who's the responsible officer in your organization? I don't care what kind of organization you have. The Supreme Court of the United States has ruled in 2 landmark cases over the last 80 years that the CEO is the responsible party, civilly, personally, and criminally responsible. Failure to plan, failure to train, ranking risk, and taking care of business. So could your CEO end up in an orange jumpsuit? Well, it isn't just the CEO. As you read the two plain language Supreme Court decisions, it's also about directors and senior operations people, perhaps like all of you, so we could have a whole parade of orange jumpsuits. Now, maybe you think I'm exaggerating today, but I can cite over the last 10 years 46 CEOs who have been indicted because of their failure to plan, failure to train, and an employee was killed on their premises. 46 were indicted, 32 of them have been found guilty and sentenced to prison. And don't be encouraged by the difference between 32 and 46. These things take years of expense and lawyers and stuff to go through the system, and they will all catch up. And there's where they are across this great land of ours. There is no particular place where this is happening. It's happening everywhere. A CEO is indicted over the last 10 years every 76 days. Here is one of those guys, CEOs in New York City, being escorted by New York City detectives. You can see he's handcuffed. He'll go in front of a judge, plead not guilty, be sent to Rikers Island, and bailed out the next day, just like on TV. Nice suit, by the way. So this is no exaggeration. This is happening out there, and it's happening out there right in front of you. Do your CEOs know this? Shouldn't they? Wouldn't you want to know if you were a CEO that you were the responsible party for ranking lethal risk? Which killer emergencies should you rank in your emergency action plan? So if all of this is required by law, and all of this is well known to everybody at court, all over the place, why haven't you done this? Denial. I don't want to have the people involved. I hate the idea that we have emergencies. There are people who have told me if we admit that we have to write a plan, that means that we have a problem of safety. And I don't want to admit that, even though we have a duty of care to keep everybody safe. So how do we sell it? The planning, the training, the drills, and the exercises to protect people, property, productivity, and posteriors like yours. Getting this done is tough, and I've learned that the scariest word in all American employers, the scariest word in your workplaces is not cost, it's not price, it's not budget, it's not head count, it's change. We say we love change. No, we hate change. Why do we hate change? And usually change occurs almost because of blunt force trauma from the outside, never by inspired leadership from the inside. We hate change. It's expensive. It's complicated. It's scary. Time-consuming. Which brings me to a movie called Jaws. 50 years ago this past summer, Jaws was introduced to the United States of America. It was a cultural earthquake. And no other film has ever been seen as was Jaws by every U.S. adult. All 130 million adults at that time, 50 years ago, saw this movie in 75 days. No other movie has ever met that standard, and no other movie ever will. And why do I bring it up? It's a movie about denial. You remember this scene. There's your CEO, I mean the mayor, being told by people like you, hey, there are people dying out there on your watch. And he came back smugly and said, can't cut the revenue by closing the beaches, can't hire more people, that's a headcount problem. You know, I've never seen this shark, are you sure we have a problem? Because Spielberg was delicious for the first 60 minutes, the first half of the meeting. We never see the monster. All we did was talk about it, like I've been talking about it for the last 40 minutes. Blah, blah, blah. Emergencies, emergencies, emergencies. Until this scene.
Stop playing with yourself, Hooper. Slow ahead, if you please. You heard him. Slow ahead. Slow ahead. I can go slow ahead. Come on down and chump some of this shit.
There you are. You've seen the monster. You're backing up here. You're going to report to the captain, your boss. What are you going to say?
You're going to need a bigger boat.
You need a bigger boat. If you remember nothing else from this experiment today that we've had about ranking risk, remember you need a bigger boat. And you don't want your CEO to be like the captain of the boat. The analogy is perfect. I love this movie. Oh, don't you worry. I've got everything handled. We haven't had a problem before. I'm going to take care of you. I know you're safe until... He was eaten alive at the end of the movie, just like your CEO will be if somebody's injured and killed on your premises. he'll be eaten alive. So where do we start? The biggest obstacle is denial. So how do we get everybody's head out of the sand? I said sand. And moving towards planning and training, ranking the risk, understanding what the risks are. So I have an action plan recommendation from you, and I have to give you one because I put you in a difficult position. There you are in the middle. I'm hectoring you about emergency action plans and training, and now you got to turn around to the boss and talk to him. And you've had this conversation before. I don't want to talk about this. Go away. Leave me alone. We're not going to do that. So what's the action plan that can jump over the denial? I have 3 ideas for you. The first plan is a threat assessment of your organization's current and crisis planning and training. Just like your financial audits, use an outside independent person. Do an audit. You audit a lot of programs in your organization, I'm sure. Why not employee safety? If audit's too big a word and scares people, how about everybody in this room at the drop of a hat will have an annual medical review? Well, why don't you do that? Let's call it that. The second action plan is a tabletop exercise for an active shooter to test your plan. Let's put everybody in the room and see how they respond as somebody who is very good at this takes you through the scenario. Remember, a plan without exercise has no muscle. So exercises are very important, but use an outside independent person not subject to your politics and your command influence. And if you call up FEMA, they can give you a list of those people who've been, like I have been, through their 24-hour training program to meet the standard as far as an exercise is concerned. Action Plan 3, a free webinar for you and your team, and present a webinar like this one in those issues to you and your team once again, just as if you brought your team here today to this presentation. As far as help for you right now, I'm happy to give you a copy of this presentation for free. Also, a legal review, the 10 Commandments of Planning at the federal level, all of the case history, all the court case work, all the regulations, all of the statutes that apply to planning for emergencies in workplaces like yours, and the 10 Commandments of Training, all of the law, cases, etc., that say you have to do this, and the quality and the kind of training that you have to apply. All of that's free. Give me a business card, as some of you have, and I'll be happy to do that. You need a bigger boat. Are there any questions? Come on.
Oh.
Somebody want to challenge me? Come on.
Okay, I have the mic for you.
The hybrid workplace.
The hybrid workplace, yes, go ahead.
It presents a challenge because perhaps your commander and other emergency personnel who you've deemed to be part of the system to help employees might not be there that day, and even the backups. I'm wondering what your suggestions are.
I have so many. And let's say you and I were just going through your deposition, and we learned that 25% of your people had never been trained, and you say what you just said. As a litigator, I'll come back and say, is there anything in the regulations that talks about remote workplaces? No. Is there anything that talks about people who only come in Wednesdays and Thursdays? No. So it does apply to everybody, is that correct? Yeah. Okay, so where are you with that? You have to work this stuff out. Nobody said that it was simple. Nobody said it was fair. Nobody said it was cheap. But that's the law of the land, and the thing that you have to hold in your head is I am responsible for the safety of the people in my workplace. The fact that they may be 20 miles away, by the way, another presentation, equally long, about home offices as workplaces. Does OSHA have regulations on this? Yes, they do. Written in the year 2000, 25 years ago, long before COVID. So you can run, but you can't hide. You got to train your people, whether they're working from home or working in your place. And yes, you can tell them this is a condition of employment. You got to be trained. That's the law of the land and has been for 55 years. Are we having fun yet? No, we're not. I'm not a fun guy. Any other questions? Give me your business cards. Thank you.
Wait, there was a question. Bo, there is a question.
Go ahead. I'm all ears. All microphones.
Okay. Is there any regulations or anything given to designers or architects of space? The reason I'm asking is to shelter in place. Oftentimes now, people are working with open floor plans and offices that have glass fronts, and there's really no place for people to hide short of the restroom, and you can't fit a company that has 300 people on a floor into one restroom.
Except for fire, means of egress, and architects don't care. This is your job, not theirs. Is that fair? Is that cheap? Is that lovable? No, it isn't. But this is your problem. You're the adult in the room. And you're held by law to a duty of care, period. And all the other stuff is just going to come off to the jury as whining. Hey, somebody died. And you're talking about the architect? I don't mean to be personal, but you see where I'm going with this. And you're sitting in your deposition saying, holy shit, how did that happen? You need a bigger boat. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm going to take that as a final question, given that we really have to wrap it up.
Okay. Thank you so much for the great presentation. There's so much things I learned from this. Coincidentally, I'm having a training session with all the staff in my organization. That'll be next Tuesday about the emergency action plan. And even though I'm not a trained and qualified instructor, because I've been able to go through the plan, I have a proper understanding of it, not as an expert, just as somebody that has been able to read and understand the plan. And I'm trying to take the training. Is it okay for now, even though from this, one of the takeouts is that it should be a qualified person that should take the training session so that people are able to get it from an expert point of view. The other thing I wanted to also just a comment on that question is, from the OSHA regulation, it shows that there are about 51 emergencies that could occur. But my ERP only captures 17. And out of that 17, I always break down the training into stratas, because if I go through everything in the emergency action plan that we have, it can get too boring for the people. So I try to break it into, based on the ranking, I try to break it into segments, to make people understand and be able to, engage.
The objective is you got to train everybody. You got to do it at least once a year. So how you get there, of course, is your choice. Breaking it down sounds real theoretically nice, but how many of your bosses are going to say, you mean you want me to take an hour here, another hour here, and another hour here for everybody? You really want me to do that? Is that the way you want me to calendarize it? Most bosses say, we're not going to do that. Maybe yours will. Again, that's your call. As far as the quality of the training, certifications are what juries and litigators are looking for. Maybe you're a nice man and you've read all of the stuff. Okay. Is that going to be good enough for the litigator? No. Can you go to FEMA? FEMA has literally 1,000 different kinds of courses on active shooter, all of the stuff that we've talked about today. And you can get certificates for each one of those things. It takes a lot of time and energy. There's no question about that if you're going to be that guy. Or you find somebody going to FEMA or the International Association of Emergency Managers and asking for somebody who does this all the time. Nobody goes to sleep during emergency action plan training. Don't worry about that. Yeah. And coffee and donuts always at work, always. Anybody else?
I'm going to have to wrap up the session, but are you willing to stay a little?
Of course.
If there's any other questions.
Of course.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, once again, please, thank you to Bo Mitchell. So as mentioned in the beginning, there are CEUs available for this session. It's right there on the screen. Take a picture if you need it. These are the instructions for the maintenance requirements for CEU and CFM. You got it? Do I have to step aside? Okay, perfect. Then lastly, I'm going to ask you to please give your feedback. You can easily do that in a mobile app. Just log in, go to the agenda, select the session, do the 2-minute survey. It's greatly, greatly appreciated. Thank you. And then lastly, I'm only here to thank you for joining today. Thank you for joining any session in this TED room. And I really, really hope to see you next year. Thanks.